This is Vaibhav again from TechRail, and in the last video where I had done some coding, I had created a new command, and in this video I will show you what I've completed. Apologies, I'm not going to show you the entire process on video as I promised, but well, I had some things in real life to take care of. I was taking care of those, and in the meantime I was checking along and trying to get done whatever I could in smaller spans of time whenever I found it. And I also had actually created a set of tests. I would say some basic stuff I had already tested before I actually started coding, so I kind of pulled all of that together, threw in a lot of extra stuff I think might be useful for chamber, and here I am. So basically I have created the schema for chamber, which I believe would be good. I have created some constants, some error codes that are useful, and I have I had created the new command. I have created a cp command. So if I go back to setting expectations, I promised I'll be making CLI, no GUI stuff yet. Storage layer, I already said I'll be using SQLite here over here. I think I read this on screen, I mean on some video. And there is encryption mechanism. So I talked about the encryption mechanism in this article, and I actually created another video about the primer. So maybe I'll give it a read later on. But this is kind of the final encryption that I want to build. The way I would like to derive the encryption key for all the content that I'm going to use, and we are not there yet, so it doesn't make a lot of difference. This is very crude. The state that I'm right now in, it does not adhere to all of this, so not much help. So getting back to setting expectations and ensuring a vault is ready for future upgrades, I don't think I'm here yet, but I wanted to make new ls and cp. Those were the new ls and cp as the commands that I want to start off with. I had already created the new command where I showed that I was able to incorporate Cobra in my application, and I was able to create a command called new, which created a file. But I had not come to the stage where I was making a SQLite file and storing contents into it. So I worked on that, and I will walk you through it in this video. So I'm done with new. I think my CP is also working, although I've not tested it properly. At least one direction I think it should be working, and if the other direction is not working, which I have not tested by the way, I will make that. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to list contents of a chamber file unless you are able to actually copy something into it. So ls is pending for now. As you can see here, there is no ls command. So I've got new, I've got cp, right? So let me try the new command again. And okay, this was the test I had done earlier. In fact, okay, go main dot go new. I'm gonna use the chamber path over here. Okay, so this will not work. Where did it go? Let me open in Finder. So this is the chamber path. It's empty. I guess it got created just now. Enter the password for encrypting chamber file contents. I'm gonna enter a password, just PASS. I'm going to press enter, and it says same password again. I'm gonna enter a different password, so it should say that I entered a wrong password, the passwords didn't match, something like that. Okay, press enter. So passwords do not match. So that flow is working. Now if I press again, try to create it again, it says password for encrypting chamber file contents. Oh, by the way, if I delete this and I create it again, it will work. It will create the path by itself. And let me try. PASSWORD. I don't know, did I mistype something? Yeah, I did. Let's try again. Just pass and PASS enter. So I guess I'll get rid of this one because it doesn't say what happened, just gives me a raw value. For now I'm displaying the password that was entered. Obviously this is not secure, it's only for the time I'm developing. And let's see where this is. I will probably mute it. I'll leave it here, doesn't matter. Now it says VaultID was set to this WS something. I will tell you what VaultID is and why I'm using it. So let's go to database, stop the connection, which basically allows me to reuse this file name here, and I can look into stuff already. So let me double click that. You can see that the vault ID was set to this, and the main password is it's not the directly hashed value of what you'd expect from this. It's not SHA 512 of pass, it's something else. Anyways, so before I proceed, you can see that the new command worked. I'm able to create a, you can see the icon SQLite file which has got these tables, right? So when you create an SQLite database and you start creating tables into it, you will find that SQLite master already exists. It usually contains the list of things that you have built and that you created. I mean, you ran to get this, incorporated, this thing built. And sequence usually has the list of primary key sequences that you will be using. So the three tables that I have built are key value, fs index, and file blobs. And I'm gonna first describe what those are. So this is the primary schema file that I run. These are options to SQLite, the connection, and what they are saying is that we want to use foreign keys. The journal mode is truncate, which basically, this does not disable the wall. It actually uses wall in. I had first thought of disabling wall, but I guess it's okay since we are going to use everything. I mean, I plan to keep everything inside a folder called chamber path, right? So we can have the wall. It's not necessary for us to have a wall, but it looks like it improves performance. This is not final. We might end up removing wall altogether, but for now this works. So journal mode stands at truncate. Basically what happens is when you run a command, you'll get a journal file which will contain the changes that need to be written into the main database file. And if you are setting this to truncate, then this, once everything has been written to the main database file, this guy goes to 0 bytes, which you can see here. That's because of truncate. If I set delete, once the changes are in the database, this file will basically disappear. SQLite will delete it. Chamber file is 33 KB. Also, I'm not exactly using the raw SQLite that was originally written. What I am using is this thing, modern c.SQLite. And if you go to this path, let me go, and sorry, it will take you to the Go package documentation here. So pkg.go.dev, and you can go to this repository where it actually comes from, and You see, this is a Sego free port of SQLite slash SQLite 3, and it is usually fairly updated and kept in tune with the actual SQLite. So if I go to download, let's see, the latest one should be a 352. That's what the latest one is at, latest version. And this is at 351 2 weeks ago, so it's fairly close to what the actual releases are available with SQLite. I think this is good because it's a Sego free port, so I hope there will be no very weird kind of bugs which happen in the C side of things and then they get transferred on Go side, because well, Go can interrupt with a C module or C code. And I don't have much experience with Sego. In fact, I just know that it exists. I have not used it, and I don't want to kind of mix it all together, and instead of building chamber I end up learning Sego. I don't want to get into that kind of bugs. So I'm using this, and thanks to whoever this guy is, his nick, I don't know much about him. I've tried finding out, but okay. This is what I'm using. I've also added ground. This is basically because I'm using some columns which basically are supposed to be JSON, and JSON is not a native data type in SQLite. So this is going to help me out with that. SQLX is a very nice library. If you have not heard of it, then you can look at the source code, you can look at the usages, and it's pretty nice. Basically it gives you some extra function on top of what database slash SQL already provides. And for example, if you just write the raw SQL and use just database SQL, normally you would have to scan every single database field, the column values that come out into individual variables, and then copy those variables over to a struct that corresponds to your model, and so on. SQLX gives you the ability to actually cast those values coming out of your database table into Go structs easily. So that's why I'm using it. It's one of my favorite libraries to use with the SQL databases in Go. And crypto, because we are doing crypto, right? Cryptography. Okay, let's come back to the schema file, and here is the first one, key value. Now I'm in a habit of creating a key value table almost in every single database that I build. Best table layout. I don't know where I kept it. Maybe it's in TechRail. Not sure. I might just delete my complete site and move it all over. Yeah, best setup for Postgres tables, and you'll see I create this everywhere. So I've not used this created and updated and more data inside the current one because they frankly don't make sense at this point. I don't want to create extra columns and populate everything. I have thought a little bit forward, so I have got some UID, GID and permissions going on with FS index, SSJ 256 sum, and so on. Same with file blobs, and these are the tables that basically will keep the data and organize that data, the file data that we want to have in Chamber. So what is FS index? FS index serves as the index corresponding to a real file system. In a real file system, for example, in FAT or X4 or NTFS, you usually have an area where the file index is kept. File index is basically a way of mapping the directories and files that you keep on your disk into the physical address on that disk, on that partition. So since we are not dealing with raw disks in chamber, but we still need to present all the content inside a chamber as a directory tree, I came up with this solution, and frankly I have worked on a similar solution long back. I'll tell you what these are. inode is a unique identifier for a file. Inode, the name comes from the POSIX standards specification, where each file has an internal number, and that is what I'm trying to do here. Obviously it will start with 1, 2 and 3, and this is usually not the inodes you will find in a real OS, OS based file system like X4 or something. File name is the name of your file. I don't think you'll get something more than varchar 255. This should be fine, and if it is not, we'll increase it. Parent inode. So this is where the hierarchy part comes in. If you have a file that is inside a directory, then what will happen is, also let's say you have a/b.txt file. So your b.txt file is inside your directory A, right? In this case, what will happen is, if you have an inode number as 1, then for A, then the parent inode will be 0. That's the default. 0 indicates the root directory, the top level, and your b.txt will probably have something like 2, 10, something, let's say 8, and the parent inode here will be 1. So this is a child of this. b.txt lies inside A. That's how I want to represent in the database. Cool. Is directory is obvious, whether the entity you're looking at is a directory or not. Size in bytes. This says whether the size of the file in bytes. For directories, it's supposed to be 0. UID and GID represent the user ID number in Linux or a Unix environment. Typically on a Debian or Fedora, I guess you'll get a number 1000. So that's what I'm trying. I have not thought about how I'm going to use these two, but maybe when I build something around mounting, these will come in handy. Right now I don't know how I'll use it. These are just kept there. Permissions, again, right now not effective. I have not implemented anything. SHA-256 sum will remain this value for directories. This is the 0 value. If you take a SHA-256, let's take a SHA-256 online tools. Nice. I use this usually, right? And SHA-256, if I just do a blank, E3B0 ends with 2B855, that is the value. This is the SHA-256 value for blank string. No input. So that's default for a directory. I know the directory is set to default. Default is set to false here, and this is set to the 0 value. But when we are actually putting in that content, we'll compute all of this. More data is basically the field where I want to keep any extra attributes which I've not thought of, but I just want to experiment with those for now. So that is where more data will come in. Right now I'm hoping it will be a JSON. Now create unique index if not exists unique file name on fs index parent inode file name. Basically this enforces uniqueness of a file name inside a particular directory. So you can't have duplicate file names in a single directory. Create table if not exists file blobs. So these are blobs. Blobs stand for binary large objects, and they are found in almost all databases you'll encounter, any sophisticated one at least. Postgres, MySQL, SQLite, MS SQL Server. I think that one calls it an image. I'm not sure. Oracle, you'll find blob types everywhere. So here it is quite simple. The ID is again a unique ID for this table. Inode is not null, but it actually references fs index inode. So basically an entry over here which is supposed to have the file content tells who I am, as in how can you identify me, right? So if you have a file that you want to give a name and it has a content, the name and all those details, the file checksum and everything will be here, and its content will be inside a row in this file. The content will be in this blob, the content column, the data type is blob, and its SHA-SUM, although it points to the empty value, it will be calculated when we input it. Sequence, this is interesting. Why do we have a sequence? More data again is the same thing. If there's something I want to keep it inside this table for a particular row, but I don't know, like I don't have a dedicated column for it, this is where I will shove it. Nice. So what is sequence? The thing is, I'm using blob, right? Now if I go to the specification, these are pragma statements. I guess you can read about those, synchronous, journal mode, and foreign keys on this URL, sqlite.org/pragma.html, right? And okay, blobs. So maximum length of a string or a blob. The maximum number of bytes in a string or blob in SQLite is defined by the preprocessor macro SQLite max length. The default value of this macro is 1 billion. This translates to, see, this is 1 billion and it's the number of bytes, right? So 1 billion bytes is 1 GB. Roughly, this exactly like GB, not GIB. And the actual max value is this, which is 2 GB. So if you try to store a large file which is beyond this limit, beyond 2 GB, it is technically not possible in SQLite. But we will encounter such a case sooner or later where you'll have to actually deal with very large files which are bigger than 2 GB. I mean, if you take a dump of a moderately sized database these days, they come in tens of GBs, right? So this is not practical to limit your file sizes to just 2 GB. So what I thought of is a single file can be broken into multiple pieces, and each piece will have a sequence number serially in the order that I am going to read it from the disk, and they will all point back to the same file with increasing sequence numbers and a chunk of content from that file on the disk, on the file system. So let's say if I have something like a file which is say 4 GB in size, and I want my chunks to be say 1 GB, what I'm gonna do is 1 GB and then 1 GB, and let's say chunk 1, this is 1 GB, chunk 2, this is also 1 GB, then you have got chunk 3 and chunk 4, right? And each of these are actually 1 GB chunks, and I can store each 1 GB here. So for a file that is, let's say 4 GB wide, sorry, its file size is 4 GB, I will have 4 values over here, and assuming the FS index is FS index inode value here is, let's say 1000, right? Or let's say it's 800. So 800 is the FS index. FS index will stand at, let's say 800, and in the file blobs you will have 4 chunks where, let's see, the ID is 10,001 or let's say 4001, just so that you don't get confused with these numbers, which is why I'm not using 1000 and 10,000 over here. So let's say the ID is 4001, and this corresponds to chunk 1. Again, the ID is 4002. It corresponds to, so this also it will have a inode number of 800, and it will contain content will be of chunk 1, which is the first 1 GB of data from that 4 GB file. Similar stuff, you're gonna have, you would have, again, inode is pointing to the same thing, content is chunk 2, and sequence, I am starting with 10,000 and hoping to increment it by 1. So sequence would be 10,000. Here the sequence, I'll tell you later on maybe why I'm putting 10,000 or something like that. I don't know. This is only a speculation that if you're trying to insert a file, if the content from somewhere in between changes, something gets added, let's say between 1 GB and 2 GB, at the boundary of 1 GB in the file, then you'll have to create more chunks, and in that case maybe leaving the older value where it is would be better. I don't know if that is how it's going to behave. I've not looked into everything about how file systems are going to behave on this, but this might be a bogus value. I don't know. 10,000 might not be great. Maybe we'll come back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But let's say for now I'm gonna increment it by just 1, and oh no. So ID would be 4003, inode will be 800, content will be of chunk 3, sequence will be 10,002. Let's see again. Right. Again, this is the last one. It will be 4004. Inode will be same. The content will be that of chunk 4, and sequence will be 1003. Right. This is how it would look. Right. For a 4 GB file, assuming the chunk size is actually 1 GB. But we can make it smaller for mobile devices, since I also want to make chamber compatible with mobile devices later on. No plans on that right now, but just forward thinking, I believe maybe something like 64 MB or something would be good here. I'm not sure. Nothing of that sort is yet decided, and I'm going to experiment with very small files for now. Once the basics are done, we'll get into breaking files into smaller chunks and storing them into file blobs table, and then referencing them into FS indexes and a whole lot more. Okay, and there is one create unique indexes not exist, file blobs, inode sequence. Okay, yeah, I mean you can't have a file blob with the same inode and the same sequence, so your sequences must be unique. Otherwise you don't have a way to actually sort, sequentialize the data from a file. Right, there is a lot of stuff that is missing in here. For example, this only contains, I don't know what I wrote, either the plain text file JSON or the encrypted one, not sure yet. I'll have to look back at the code, but I don't have both the values right now. I'll rename these probably later on. So this is the schema, very simple. You have a key value which I am going to use for storing some kind of settings, password hashes, password hints, things like that. FS index will contain the index based entries, file names, and the hierarchy, how it's organized. And the file blobs will actually contain the actual content of each chunk of the file. So okay, yeah, SHA-256 sum, this is supposed to contain the SHA sum of the entire file, This one is supposed to contain the sum of the chunk only, whatever chunk it contains, right? For smaller files, both of these will be same, right? I think that's enough. I can now jump into code. What I did, so lots of changes. As you can see, these blue lines are the changed lines, and this green supposedly is supposed to be new, but the way Git looks at things, uh, large changes are also just going to show up as changes instead of new lines at times. Okay, so let's revisit the new command, what it is doing. So when you run chamber space new, ideally this will execute. I am trying to take chamber path from either chamberfile underscore lock, which will allow you to set the location temporarily using environment variables. And if that is not set, then I'm checking at least whether the chamber file path, chamber path actually, was passed in as an argument or not. And if that is not the case, then we don't have the value, like new can't continue, right? So it will print a message and return back. Otherwise, we are either this or coming from arguments, we have that value in chamber path file info. So basically, once we have the chamber path, we are trying to check whether or not it exists. If it does not exist, we will try to create it, and if we fail, we'll return it with an error. If it was not an error of it not existing, that something else went wrong, maybe we don't have permission to open that file or the paths, or we can't create it, or I don't know, like what the problem is. Maybe an IO error on OS level, this will come up probably. And if file info was found, and which means that this path already existed, but it was not a directory, we are expecting it to be a directory, obviously, where we'll store all the SQLite based files. It will complain that it already exists and is not a directory, and we are now going to check whether or not it is empty or not. I mean, if it got created just now, it must be empty. If it was already present, then it still has to be empty, which is why it did not complain when I was trying to create it and the folder was already there. By the way, I use the term folder and directory very interchangeably. Apologies if that makes you get confused. I mean, if that confuses you. The next, I am reading the input for password twice. Term.read password basically allows you to enter password on a CLI application without echoing it. And once I have confirmed that they match, then we are going to create the chamber file location, the final file. Remember, we inputted or took the chamber path, the path of the directory. So I'm gonna just append chamber file to that. This file path separator basically allows you to have code that is OS agnostic, since Windows uses backslash and Unix like systems, Linux, BSD, Mac OS use /, so you don't have to like an if condition. Okay, so we'll create a chamber file. We will try to create it, and if it didn't get created, error. If it got created, we'll immediately close it and run this function, which will create the schema. Basically, it will run the commands in this file schema.sql. I will show you how. And again, error if could not create the schema. You know how Go's errors are, right? So this one is actually an error type that I already have developed in, I think it is from app error in TechRail ground. Yep. So you can go through this later someday, but basically error is not equal to nil is what it's trying to do here. Again, it will compute the password to be stored, and it will set a VaultID. So the reason I'm setting VaultID is if two people are using Chamber to create their own vaults and they use basically the same password, and somehow, despite all the attempt at preventing password guessing and having secure hashes and everything, if despite all that someone is able to actually deduce the actual password used to create the chamber file by using the you know from the hashed password that was stored on disk in the SQLite database, then he will have cracked all the passwords which will have that hash. What VaultID does is it does two things. It gives kind of a unique identity to your vaults. I am gonna use it later. I can't describe everything that I have in my mind right now. We'll come to that when we build that feature. It's a long way. So VaultID can be used as a salt as well, so that even when two people with the same password, create a chamber file with the same password, their password hashes on disk will differ, because this is basically a random sequence. I said I'll get back to this, right? So let's get into what create schema for file does. It tries to open main DB. If not open, it comes from the resources package. Look at this, resources. Now I'll tell you why I've named this resources. I come from a PHP background. The first serious language that I had in my career was PHP, and in PHP, kind of temporary resources that are created for your program, things that cannot be serialized per se, they are called resources. Things like file descriptors or database connections or something of that sort. Usually these, they are called resources. Now this is not exactly a thing that falls into resources, not everything at least, but I name the package resources in my projects for things that are applicable only while runtime. You kill the program, nothing that was stored here makes any sense. Okay, it goes away. Everything else goes away, but this is only a way of me trying to segregate functionality based on their usage. And resources basically means things that are gonna be used at runtime, but they are not stored somewhere in a form that they are used, if that makes sense. Anyways, coming back, if I come here, I'm trying to create this schema file, so we will open the main DB. If not open, basically checks whether or not it's already open. If yes, no error, thank you. If it does not, then it will try to set the file path, try to open that, and if it errors out, we'll set the state to error and return with error. If not, the DB state is now open, and that's it. Now this main DB is kind of initialized, right? So let's get back, see if it is open or not. If error, go return it. Otherwise create schema. Let's get into this. This is in DB package. This is interesting, right? So it says read the file migration/schema.sql, this file, but it is coming from this migrations embed.fs type. Embed.fs is a special type of file system that is available in Go. When you create an embed.fs with this kind of a comment, this directive, these special comments are called directives. It says that the migration folder and all its contents are supposed to be included in this variable, which basically acts like a file system. So I don't have to take this SQL file, apart from the binary that will get produced and run it, ask the user to, execute it separately or something. I can have all of that content inside the binary itself. So whenever you run chamber, you can have the guarantee that schema.sql exists. Like if I remove this folder and I try to compile it, let's do that. In fact, if I go and say refactor rename, and I will call it migrations_1, okay, it says do you want to change it? Let's do a refactor. It got renamed, but let me do this. See, ID gives you an error. I love Golang. Now try to compile it. It will say pattern migrations, no matching file found. So basically it is a protection against your mistakes as well. Like, this is supposed to exist. If migrations folder is not here, the compiler is gonna throw an error saying that, dude, you are trying to include a folder. You want it, right? You want it to be present in the binary, and I can't find that. So please make sure, like, either this is wrong or the folder name is wrong. One of those is wrong, right? So let's rename it back to migrations. Oh, sorry, refactor. Go ahead. Okay. So yeah, so it will try to read this file, get all the bytes, and DB, again, this comes from the main DB. It will try to execute with a context the contents of this file and return result. Something went wrong, could not create tables, print the error, return the error, otherwise print result. This, I think it will let it go. Right. In this case, this is not required. I can just, okay, do it like this. Okay, so create the schema and set that state to db state open. I think I am doing it twice. db state open should have been done here. Yeah, it's already being done. So this is redundant. We can get rid of that, right? Okay, then it computes storage, and it basically does 2 hashes for the input password. This is the one that will be returned here. This is the one that will be stored. So what is stored is not exactly going to help you derive the decryption or encryption key. It will happen on this, which has already been hashed and stored. So using hash 2, you can't get back to hash 1, so you can't derive the encryption key. I have to make it longer. There will be 8 steps with mixes and matches, but for now this is fine. We are just starting off. Get random alpha string basically tries to take small and capital letters and iterates over this and appends to the byte slice that needs to be returned, and then convert it to string and returns it. So random alphabetic string, set VaultID in chamberfile. Again, this is the same, tries to open the file, sees whether the VaultID is already there or not. If it is, then hey, where did it go? If there is an error, and that error is basically no SQL error, no rows, which means that it didn't file in the VaultID, which means we have to insert one, which is happening here. And otherwise, if there is some other error, it will return that error. And if we came here, that means the VaultID was already present and it was set to this, right? No errors. This value must have been there. Let's get back. Set password hash. This actually does the similar thing. Checks whether it's there or not and sets it. So you know how the new command works, right? Now let me get back here and delete the file that got created and try it again, right? Enter password for encrypting chamber file contents. I am going to say PASSWORD, enter. PASSWORD, enter. Password entered was this. Vault ID is set to JKQJ something ending with BWW. Let's refresh that. Come to key value. You can see this, and you can see the main password hash. This is not exactly password hash that you expect. All right, so we have new. Lovely. New is working. Let's go to CP. And for now, what I have done with CP is basically you can copy something from your file system into the chamber, as in chamber file, or you can take out something from the chamber file and copy it into your file system. So copy direction in means putting inside the chamber file. Copy direction out means taking it out of chamber file and putting it on your file system. Right. I've not set the long description. I mean, we can write it later. Again, same thing. I am trying to get the chamber path. This time, instead of having it as an argument, I'm trying to get it from chamber file argument. I'll show you how that is supposed to work. Basically, let me try go run main.go cp main.go dash chamber file. So chamber file, if you go to root, I have added this as a persistent flag which can appear for almost every single command, right? And you can specify it with chamber file, right? I should probably rename it because it's not the file path, it's the directory path, but for now, okay, I'm using this. And password is what you will have, as the password. So right now I created password. I should probably put it as PASSWORD. WORD. Okay. Then you specify the command cp, which will call this, and this is where it's trying to extract the value. So either this chamber file underscore lock environment variable must be populated, or this chamber file dash chamber file option and its value must be given, right? If something is not right, we'll return with an error. Oh, what happened? Okay. Similar stuff, computing the chamber file location, adding chamber file at the end, trying to check whether or not it already exists or not, and appropriate errors around that. Plain text password should come from dash password. This is something I'm trying to do only while development. This should not be available after I'm actually releasing it in its final version. Maybe through betas and all, whatever I release, we'll have this kind of a switch. Okay, so plain text password, expecting it to be there. Instead of, okay, we can use debug print. Basically it checks for an environment variable called debug, right? And if that is set, this function is going to print whatever is supplied to it. It must have 2 arguments, and not more, not less, and one of them must start with chamber : / which basically gives you the path inside the chamber file that you have supplied, chamber path that you have supplied, right? And the chamber file path that you have supplied, the content inside your chamber file. That's what it's going to look into. Second is chamber is false. Basically the other one is supposed to be your FS path. Right now I'm only looking for the absolute path. Direction, I'm just setting in a default value, copy direction in, and we are checking whether the first argument starts with chamber : / whether the second one starts with chamber : / It's easy to do it this way because on Windows the paths differ. They start with C drive, D drive, something like that. Directory separators are different, so it's easier to look for chamber : / Again, you cannot copy contents of one chamber file into another, so both can't be chamber. Both the arguments can't start with chamber : / and you cannot also use this command to copy files or folders in one directory on your file system into another directory on the file system on your computer. You can't do that. It's only supposed to be working with at least one of the arguments, exactly one of them being a path inside the chamber file and the other one being for your file system, right? So switch case, we are checking whether or not only one of those is a chamber file path, and the other one is file system path. So switch case, if both are chamber files, cannot have both arguments as chamber directories or files, I guess. Chamber files or directories. We are not dealing with directories right now, by the way. We are not local files or directories. If the first is chamber and the second is not a chamber, copy direction out. We are trying to copy from the chamber to the file system. If first is not a chamber file, chamber path, path inside chamber file. I've got really bad nomenclature, I guess. I need to change some of that, probably. So in this case, we are going to put something in our chamber file. Otherwise, it's anything else. I don't think there is any possibility, but I always do a default. So unexpected error occurred, so that I'm able to catch errors if I modify this behavior later on and I mess up. At least this will catch it. I'm just hoping for that. So we have checked everything. We have got our password. We have got our source and destination paths. We have confirmed everything is okay. Now we need to open the database, the SQLite database, our chamber file. So it again uses the same function, open main DB if not open, and if there was an error, we can't proceed. Then again, it tries to verify whether the password that was supplied is right or not. If yes, if anything is wrong, if the password did not match, it will say, hey, it's an incorrect password and die off. If there was some other error, again, if the password stored was not 128 bytes, not 128 bytes, 128 characters, which is basically hexadecimal representation of a 5 and 12, say 512. I guess it's 512, right? Sorry, this one. Yep, it's 512. So 512 by 4. Why is it divisible by 4? You can look into how a hexadecimal representation happens. You'll get the idea. If not, ask me somewhere. We will use the first 12 bytes as a sort and the rest as something. I don't know why I did that here. We are not doing 12 bytes. We are trying to derive a sort and a password part from the derivation input which we got from here. I told you the first hash is coming out as the second return value, right? That is what I'm trying. The sort part must include the VaultID, not yet done. I guess I will make a to-do for here. Involve the VaultID here. To create the salt. Okay, we are going to derive an encryption key which we will keep here, but we are not going to use it actually. We are not going to use it yet. Then depending on which direction we are taking, we are going to do copy direction out, or copy in. Now, I told you we are not going to use it. Like, this is the only usage, right? Should be setting, that's it. 160 and 161 in cp.cmd. 160 and 161. We are not using it anywhere. So, we're definitely not encrypting the content yet. This is only for testing. So, I have not tested out copy out enough. In this setup I have actually not tested out it at all. Copy in I have. Let's see if that works or not. Again, okay, this is a problem. I should say constants dot db state open. That is why I created those constants for. So if the db state is not open, sorry, can't copy in. If 2 has a prefix of chamber : / then remove that part, please. I'm doing trim prefix. Ensure no leading slash is there in 2, so that if there was a slash something it removes it. It helps in the, you know, going through the loop. um, no single entry, if err start chamber for 2, start chamber, forgot what I wrote here. So has prefix, again it's trying to see if there is a prefix or not, for slash, and trims the prefix, trim space is equal to this. So if the path is blank, gives back an error. Remove this and I say constant start db state open. If it is not open, I mean I'm checking at different places, but I guess I should. It doesn't hurt to check more, it would hurt not to check enough. Create an error type, break the string by using strings.split with OS pass. I guess I would try to do a slash, but we can leave it here. We are rolling over path pieces. This is not foolproof. I think it has got errors. If index is 0, then trying to get a fs entry. If fx index is not nil and is a directory, then fs index is get single entry. Alright, if error is not blank, break. I guess some error is there. We will do that when we handle directories. I'll look into it. I just wrote some crude code. If error is not blank, paths that does not exist is this. Path does not exist in chamber, else could not start the path. I forgot what I wrote. This is old code. Path seems to exist. If error is not blank, and where is this error coming from? It's coming from get single entry. So it probably has a special case for this. Get single entry, basically, again, I should be replacing these. Constant.db state open. Get single entry, and if no rows were found, then error code no single entry. I should say ERR, not, sorry, saying just ERR, no single entry. When the file entry does not exist in the chamber file, we are going to return this. So let's get back. No single entry because it was not found. SQL error, no rows coming here. This is returned by a database / SQL package which is built into the standard library when something is not found in the database. So if this is being returned, that means, so app error basically is my own type where I am using this code to identify special cases. Since normal errors are just plain strings, this works better in some cases. And if this was not the error, but still this is not the case, but there was still some error, then we are going to return this, right? And if there was no error at all, then we are going to return a blank error and the entry. So if error wraps error code, error no single entry, which means that the file what we were looking for above, despite this garbage that I have written, if the file was not found, then we return this. Path does not seem to exist. If there was something else, then I guess I am printing the error. Lovely. Path seems to exist, we return this. So if this is blank, let's go back. Where am I starting the chamber? This is 37, probably here. I'm in copy in, okay. So if the file was not there, we can copy, okay, yeah. So this means that the file was not there and we can start copying, right? And what is the else condition? Let's check. Else files exists probably, and cannot copy as file already exists. If fs index entry is not in, this was found, and inode is not equal to 0, that means it already existed, right? And this is the code. I guess I should remove here the word code from here. Okay, come back. Unknown and unexpected state. Yeah, I don't know what to do here, so I'm just printing that. I mean, returning it. Maybe something will get printed. I think I'm handling that where I'm calling copy in. So yes, if it is not blank and already exists, wraps code is just similar to checking with %w in case of standard errors. It's for my type, my app error type, and could not copy with for some other error. So if I'm handling the case where this file already exists, this should work. So that is for copy direction in. Out, I wrote with a similar mindset. Again, this is an older code that I had written. I mean, some pieces were old. I wrote some new stuff, and I don't know if this is going to work or not. Let's see. Okay, we are not testing copy out right now. Let's check copy in, and ensure no leading slash. Stop chamber 1 second. Oops, sorry. Copy in. I was here, right? Where did it go? Here is the meat. We can copy as the file does not already exist. Begin the transaction. I'm beginning the transaction. Begin X. This begin X. Last mein you can see. Sorry, I just spoke Hindi. You can see it ends with X. So this comes from that SQLX package, JMOR on SQLX, right? Okay, this helps in transactions. So I get a transaction. If error is not equal to nil, could not start transaction, and defer func rollback. I'm not sure whether this is supposed to be here or not. What error is it talking about? I remember I was getting some problem, so I can probably just oh yes. If it succeeds, then it still tries to defer this function, which basically says I want to do a rollback, and it fails. So get the hell out of here. Okay, and what does it say? Rollback, unhandled error. I don't want to wrap it in closure now. So get the file size. We are going to, if the file size is more than 100 MB, no, I'm checking for 64. Update this. 64 MB. Let's try for 32 MB. Okay, 64 is fine for now. Then reject the operation because I don't want to deal with large files right now. To do determine how to handle large files later. Read into the bytes. Now again, like I said, this is not going to work if this is very large. Like if you have a RAM of say 8 GB but your file is like 50 GB, it can still work, right? You can have a very large video file, and you can use it with 8 GB RAM, but you can't read it all into memory, right? So this is fine enough for now. I'm reading all the file contents into this byte slice. I am doing a SHA-256 value on the file contents. I'm going to create an FS index entry first, and this is why I started with a transaction, right? Either I am able to enter the index and the blob both. Here I'm trying to comment, or nothing works. I want that behavior. Like I don't want to have an index entry without having the blob, or vice versa. I don't want to first insert a blob and then something goes wrong and I don't have an index entry for that. I don't want those cases to be possible. So that is why I'm using a transaction. So I'm going to create the fs index entry here. File name is what was supplied. The path where it's supposed to go. Parent inode is hard coded to 0, which is basically the root directory. When we deal with directories, this is gonna change, and I'll include some logic to actually set it. Is directory is false because I'm only dealing with files right now, not a directory. Size in bytes is whatever file size I have taken here. Get file size. Basically, this gets the file info and then gives the size, right? And again, errors everywhere. You find an error, you return it. I'm not gonna describe every single error. UID is the default UID that I have got. Basically, an int function is initializing into 1000. And the permissions also the default value SHA-256 value which I just computed. Try to insert it. Is it an error? Return. When you say return, defer will automatically roll back, right? If everything went well, the file index is here. We are going to do the encryption, but I have basically disabled the encryption for now. Just to check, I'm copying the file content bytes which I previously read into this byte slice. I'm copying it here, setting it as the content, and then insert with transaction this file blob. Hopefully everything works well, and we are returning a blank error, right? Let's see if it works. This is quite a bit of code, and I should have written it on video, but I didn't. So let's see if it works. I think it worked last time, this one. So what I've done is chamber test contents readme.md. I think I copied the readme file of this project only. Readme.md. Okay, this is the content, right? Chamber #chamber h1 basically. Chamber is a tool to create secure containers for keeping your secret files into it. It does not require mounting, can work with the password. It is incomplete, but fine. Let's see if it gets copied, right? And I'm just trying to put it at the root, right? So copy this file into my chamber file, place it as readme.md. Again, see, this is capitals, this is not capital. So let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. Enter. Success. Lovely. I have gotten an encryption key. I don't know how I'll use it right now, but fine. It says trying to check if the file exists. Success is here. I don't know where I'm printing success from. CP171. This is direction in. I guess this is the one that got printed. See, this is why I've got these LMIDs. I don't know where this success came from, right? This always gives me a single point. So let's see whether it got copied or not. Key value should not have anything new. Go to fs index, should have one entry. It is there. It has got the file name readme.md. Parent inode is 0 as expected. Is directory? No. Size in bytes in 153. Let's see if that is the 153 bytes. Yes. UID, GID permissions, don't care about those. SHA-256 sum. Let me try to open it. Copy this and let's see if the SHA-256 comes out exactly this. Okay. So if I say 5831 ends with 711 F7. 5831 and ends with 5711 F7. Cool. So we have got this SHA-256 sum of this value. File index seems to be good. Let's check file blobs. Yes, I have got an ID, inode ID, sequence is the default one, SHA-256 one. Like I said, for smaller files, it will be same. It is the same stuff. Content is also exactly the same. Yes, there is a space. There is a space in the end. More data is set to blank. This worked. Yes. Good. So I basically did some plumbing of some old code, some old logic that I had written quite some time back, and put it all into a function, and did some dirty stuff with CP. CP is working, new is working. I am quite happy. I have successfully created a first chamber file. Let me try to encrypt it. Lovely. So what I'll do is I will try to copy the same file. This time I'm gonna try to encrypt it. Let's hope it works. So CP copy in, and this is why have I written two times? Okay, let us do this. This was the error because both are new. On no new things on left side, should be no new variables on the left side. Yeah, so remove this. If error is not equal to nil, return something, could not encrypt file, blah 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 blah. All right, let's util.encrypt is basically trying to take encrypt AES plain text key. What the hell is this doing? It is doing AES new cipher using GCM method on this block. Non-size as gets created from new GCM. I guess I can set it to something else, but fine, default is fine for now. And create the GCM.seal. Basically, it stores the nonce with the ciphertext, I guess. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, might be wrong. Again, decrypt is also there. Am I using decrypt? Nah, not using it yet. Thought so. So let's see if I'm able to encrypt it. And press enter. Oh yes, cannot file as cop. File already exists in chamber. Exit status 1. Lovely. This is because I should have changed it to readme1.md or something. Let me try that. Readme underscore enc.md, and let's press enter. Success. Wow. Sorry, not this one. Readme underscore enc.md, size in bytes. I guess I messed something up, I don't know. Or this, okay, here I have got the actual value. There I might be having a different one. No, same thing. But yes, I got the content encrypted. This is some 0x something, which means this is binary stuff, which Golang the ID cannot display. Wow, that worked. I don't know whether this is the right encrypted content or not. Let me fix first SSH 256 some. Okay, let me leave it. I mean, I'm gonna leave it now. I will probably just create SHA-256 some underscore plain and underscore enc for encrypted, and store both of them. Shouldn't be very complicated, I guess. But I've been speaking and coding since quite some time today, so I'm gonna take a break. Hopefully this was useful and exciting for you as well.